Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
We have this little thing called a podcast. You can find it below in the description.
This video is brought to you by our friends at wineaccess.com/ham, where you get 20% off.
Send a gift to someone that does not know a gift is coming and use wineaccess.com/ham. Who doesn't like wine? Everyone does. Send it right now.
Satisfaction guaranteed. Satisfaction guaranteed. All right, John. Here is what John Lynch said on Collinsworth's PFF podcast about Trey Lance. Take a listen.
Justin Fields had a fantastic workout, but on the way back, we're on the plane. Jed was nice enough to get us a plane, and Kyle's on his iPad with that iPad pencil, and he's just grinding over there. And finally, he said, "Look at this." I was wondering what he was doing. Well, he was drawing up stuff with Trey, in mind. And so we had just come from Justin Fields, and we both agreed his workout was fantastic. But Kyle and I, that's when I said, man, he's really all in on Justin Fields.
Thanks to Jed for letting us use the plane, by the way. So drawing up plays, what he said there, just come from Justin Fields' workout. He was fantastic, but when Kyle showed me he was drawing up plays for Trey on the plane, that's when I knew he was really all in on Trey. Remember, this was before they'd actually seen Trey Lance in person, too.
Yeah, it goes back to what he said. And listen, I've always said when you hear coaches and GMs talk, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. For the most part, everything they have said has felt pretty true, and their actions have followed what they've said. I don't think they really have a reason to lie, but they were adamant that Trey was the guy from the jump. And media reports were the opposite, right? It was Mac. I feel pretty confident that, at least with John for sure, but that Kyle was the guy that got John really to be into Trey. And this just goes back to kind of validate that thinking, right? That Kyle was all in on Trey from the jump. Now, the thing that I had heard, which feels like it was just wrong, and you had mentioned this right after the draft, that people in the Niners had told you, and I had heard the same thing, but Justin Fields was never an option, even though I was hearing kind of maybe from Justin Fields' camp that they felt pretty confident. And I think that's part of it. We had some fun at the expense of the Bears, right, when he picked up the phone. I think his devastation, because whether it was true or not, his truth in their camp, they thought like they had a pretty good opportunity. And in fairness to the Niners, it's not like they were telling anyone. Hell, remember Trey Lance was on the phone. He's like, "Did you know it was us?" He's like, "No, man, I didn't have any clue," because they didn't really tip their hand. But Kyle was pretty enamored with him. I mean, I think clearly, right, if you take what he just said at face value, which at this point, why would he make that up?
Yeah, I don't think he's making it up. I do think the reason that you
there is a reason to make it up, to make your guy feel better.
Make your guy feel better. Let the legend grow a little bit more, that you were dialed in on your guy the whole time, and as everyone else was trying to figure it out, especially because you've seen how you were judged when people thought you liked Mac Jones. My belief has been, and I've said it many times, I think they like Trey Lance. I take them at face value for a lot of what they've said in terms of how long they've liked him. I do think they considered Mac Jones, not like the week leading up to the draft, but I think they were open-minded, like, where are we on this? And it would not surprise me if they even in some way had Mac ahead of Justin Fields, which I know sounds crazy. That would not surprise me. But to me, it's just more about, I don't think it was close for them between Trey and Fields. Again, listen to what he says. He says, "We just saw Justin. He was fantastic. He had a great pro day." And what he's saying is he doesn't want to, and we saw it when he talked about Reuben Foster the other day.
Belittle the guy.
Yeah. He's like, look, he was fantastic, but it's about how much we liked Trey, not that we didn't like Justin. And I can understand why. I could understand why they would like Trey Lance a lot. You and I both, when we had to pick, said I think that's who they take in the end, in the final moments before the draft, because there was a lot of reason to like Trey Lance. And I think after they got to work with him, I think all the stuff we've heard about his aptitude, the things that he did, like the things that he was required to do in college, it makes sense to me that they would have really been zeroed in on him, several weeks before the draft. That I don't think it's crazy, kind of this sort of, I don't want to use the word narrative, but I guess it's kind of narrative that they're relaying, which is that Trey was at the top of the list.
Yeah, and I think when you really like a player, and sometimes you see this in the draft when there is the coach and the GM or the personnel department and the coaching staff are not on the same page, it carries over to the field. And I experienced it with, lower name guys when I was with the Eagles, like mid-round picks that a assistant coach didn't want, that the personnel side did, and then the coach, it feels like half-assed coaching him. It's different because Kyle's in control here. But I think right away you see in the first practice, he's right there with Jimmy. Like he's repping like he's the 1B, right? Really, there's 1 and a 2. Really, there's 1A and 1B right now. Like this guy's the backup quarterback immediately because that's Kyle's guy, right? Now, Jimmy is the guy because he's been there longer. He's accomplished more. But I think that's a pretty good sign of like, it's not like Kyle feels, because there have been reports and people have written, whether it's The Athletic or just different people out there, could this have been kind of forced on Kyle? Did he get cold feet because the media, and we've both said, you think he gives a flying fuck what the media thinks? You haven't been following the Shanahan, or Kyle, maybe Mike does, but Kyle definitely doesn't. And I don't think Mike at this point does either, and I would say John doesn't really either, right? So they made the decision that they felt best. And now the best part about any decision in pro sports, right? In other walks of life, it can take a while. Like in sports, you kind of know, like you just get validated, or whoa, we got a problem, or whoa, we have a long way to go. You just know because you get the games, and they are, kind of, in normal people business, there's like quarters, Q1, Q2, end of the year. Like in sports, there's every week, right? And Jimmy plays into it too, like how he's playing. Is Trey having packages? There's so many different variables, but you get to see them play. Like there's a test every Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. But that's what I think that's what made it hard for people on Trey, though, is that no one had really seen him play.
Well, no one has, beside, like scouts.
Well,
and, even if you YouTube them, like you didn't, I think there's something comforting for a fan, right? For any famous guy that was just drafted, right? The Jamar Chases, the Waddles, even Mack and Justin Fields. Like I watched those guys play. You've often heard people talk about it in the NBA. It's always so much easier to draft the star of the tournament. Your owner's always behind it, than kind of go outside the box of a guy on a bad team, on a European guy. It's easy. It would have been easy if Kyle had told Jed and John, I love Justin Fields. There would have been zero pushback from the fans. He would have got applauded on draft day. It would have been would you agree that would have been the easiest move?
Yep.
For public perception?
Yes. But, I've said this, you and I have talked about like college football coach hires for a while. That's great when you get all the pats on the back at the press conference. But in 6 months, you're going to have to play a football game. And you better hope you hired the right coach for that, not the right coach for the press conference. So, yeah, but I do agree, I think it's a great point. The big school guy who played a bunch of games, who played on a big stage, is always going to be the number one kind of consensus pick, right? No one is ever going to be like, no, I want Josh Allen. I shouldn't say, when I say no one, I just mean the majority will never say that. And understandably so. Right?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever difficult to draft. Oh, we drafted Najee Harris. Oh, we drafted Devontae Smith. And I'm talking great Jamar Chase. These guys were elite players. But as we know, there have been a lot of the same, right? Najee Harris's, Jamar Chase's, Waddles, Devontae Smith's, Penei Sewell's, like the big name guys. We know for a fact all of them are not going to be Pro Bowlers, right? Some of those guys are going to have quote unquote disappointing careers, right? And same with Trey Lance. Who knows? That's the unknown. The best part about the NFL offseason is so much happens, right? You have free agency and you have a draft, and there's so many different moves. There's so much NFL turnover. Of the three major sports, by far, because the contracts aren't guaranteed, you can cut guys. I remember when I was in the NFL, there were studies like, it's on average, it was like 30 to 35%. But some teams are different depending on your roster, right? Some teams can have like almost, I bet the Patriots this year had a massive turnover, and some teams can have 22%. But you know for a fact you're going to have several new starters every year, right? Rookies, free agents, and no one ever, we've talked about this for a long time, you have never in the history of a draft seen a free agent, seen a first-round pick and not a crazy celebration.
No one's ever been like, we didn't just draft a star.
The reaction of all the quarterbacks in all these drafts, besides, I don't count Belichick, they don't celebrate, but the good example is Penei Sewell, right? The Lions, how excited they were. And you had said that, didn't Penei say, like, it was cool to go somewhere where they were super excited?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it might, if I told them, do you know Penei is actually not going to be very good? Like, obviously they think he's going to be a star, like a stud, a stalwart.
Yep.
Everyone, same with Najee Harris, same with Devontae Smith, same with Micah Parsons. I mean, you can go through the list. They were all celebrating. Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. I mean, it's just, but you and I talk so much leading up, and this is what makes the draft, such a polarizing thing. Like, they were all in on him. And that's awesome. Just like I think Howie was all in on Devontae Smith, and the Bengals were all in on Jamar Chase. You get to find out, right?
Well, this is, I think, why ultimately, if I were the owner of a team or a GM hiring a coach, it'd be really hard to not hire an offensive coordinator as your head coach. Go back to the clip we loved from Mel Kiper. This was after he was on this show. But when he went on that rant, right, about coaching players up, like you've said it, you get paid a lot of money to coach guys up. Part of this is the scouts have to have the vision based on the physical attributes. You have to be able to say, okay, here's what I can make this guy become. And so that's part of the deal with Trey, right? Part of this has to be vision. It really is the case for any guy. But the number one position you need to have vision for, like if you told me my coach is on an airplane getting ready for the draft and he's drawing stuff up on his iPad, do I want him to be drawing stunts for the defensive line or plays for the quarterback? Like, plays for the quarterback. Like, that's what I want, right? Yes. And so to me, like, this story from Lynch is another example of why it'd be really hard. Like, Saleh might turn out to be a great coach. There are defensive coaches having a lot of success. Historically, it happens. But like this, to me, is a perfect example of why it's hard to put all your eggs in a basket of a guy who can't fix the quarterback, whose number one job isn't to work with the offense and the most important position in sports.
Think about two of the greatest quarterback moves ever came from Bill Walsh, anticipatory scouting of Steve Young when they traded for him from the Bucs. The other one, Ron Wolf, Mike Holmgren, anticipatory scouting when the Falcons Hall of Fame quarterback, Brett Favre. But at the time when both those moves were made, now I don't know if either one thought the guy would be Hall of Fame all-time greats, but they saw talent where every other team could have gone in the mix, right?
It's really crazy that two of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all, those two guys were traded players.
Yeah, it's wild. Falcons still claim him, though.